Hey guys, welcome back to the Piston Show. I'm Kashi Dylan, and as usual, I'll be the host for your video. We are here in beautiful sunny Spain, where Spain has obviously just won the Euro, so the atmosphere over here is absolutely electric. And complementing that atmosphere is this beautiful motorcycle over here, the new Royal Enfield Guerilla 450. It's the second roadster model in the Royal Enfield lineup after the Hunter 350. We spent a lot of time riding it and corner covering up the mountains and down the hills yesterday, and it's absolutely amazing in terms of handling and the way it looks as well. I mean, you can tell it's a beautiful looking bike and plenty of opportunities for customization. However, before we go any further, a quick acknowledgement of our sponsor. But just to give you a reason to come back to watch this video, let me show you how it sounds like. Hey guys, what are some of the things that you consider when choosing a petrol brand? For me, I make sure that the petrol can keep my engine clean and also give me better mileage. I'm sure everybody thinks about this when choosing a particular brand. With BH Petrol's Infinity Round 95 Euro 4M, you get precisely that. It has special German additives that reduces the amount of deposits that build up in your engine over the long term, keeping it clean. It also has improved friction modifiers that reduces the amount of friction that your engine has to go through, ultimately giving you better mileage and making BH Petrol's Infinity Round 95 Euro 4M the right choice. Thank you for sticking around. Anyway guys, the Guerilla 450 continues on that roadster silhouette that, as I said earlier, we first saw with the Hunter 350. And part of that is the way the frame, the suspension, especially the rake, has been set up. And this is something that adds to the character of the motorcycle, not only in the way that it looks and the stance that it has, but also the way that it handles. But before I get to that, I would just like to start from the back, from the front to the back and down to from the bottom up. And part of the character of the motorcycle is the Seat tires that are basically wrapping the 17-inch wheels. Talking about wheels, you have 17 at the front and 17 at the back as well. So even though the Guerilla 450 shares a lot of similarities in terms of the frame and the engine and such with the Himalayan, the one key difference over here between the two motorcycles is obviously the size of the tires. So wrapping the 17-inch wheels are the Seat tires that we first saw with the Himalayan. Now these were purpose-built for the Himalayan, according to Royal Enfield at least. They were purpose-built for the Himalayan, but they have been adapted for the Guerilla 450. Now it's a hard compound tire, and yesterday while we were riding it, we did think that I found it to, sort of be, I would have liked a little bit more grip from the tires, so a bit more road biasness would have been nice. I mean, they're good looking tires and they add, as I said, to the overall design character of the motorcycle. But in terms of grip and performance, I did think that, when you're leaning the bike over, you do need a little bit more bite from the tires. There were a couple of moments where it's simply, under heavy braking or hard acceleration out of a corner, it did break traction and just absolutely hair-raising moments over there. So I'm not a big fan of the Seat tires, so I do think that a bit more road biasness as far as tire grip would have been nice. Now, in terms of stopping power, something that is quite familiar across the Royal Enfield range is the 310mm disc that is grabbed by a dual piston bi-brake caliper. Bi-brake by Brembo. These are the entry-level calipers to the wonderful world of Brembo brakes. And then besides that, you have these very aggressively raked front forks. Now these are your conventional forks. They are not inverted or upside down forks and such. Royal Enfield says that these are good enough for the the sporting character of the Guerilla 450, and you also get these rubber covers over here which just gives it a very classic look. I really like that. The headlights, LED, of course, similar to the ones on the Himalayan. And another thing that is similar to the one on the Himalayan is the digital dash. Now this is one of my favorite things about the Guerilla 450. It's the same one as the one that we get on the Himalayan as well. One thing that I like about this dash is not just the way it presents information back to you, but it's also in the way that it connects to your phone. It's you connect to it through a proprietary Royal Enfield application. And one thing that is cool about that, because applications are not a big deal. Almost all bike makers do that these days. But one thing that I truly appreciate about this is the integration of Google Maps. So instead of having to buy a phone holder just for navigational purposes, you can simply load the Royal Enfield app and the Google Maps will be displayed on this meter panel on the dash. So that is something that I like, and you don't want to mess up the elegant lines or the silhouettes of the handlebar when you have a phone holder. So that is something that I think is good. However, there are a couple of things that are a bit of a drawback over here. So for the Royal Enfield app to work as it's supposed to, you cannot lock your phone. We didn't get a chance to try it, but some of the guys here that are with us said that you cannot lock your phone when the Royal Enfield app is working. So I'll need to fact check that, but if it's true, that's a bit of a bummer because that's going to eat up your battery life and also perhaps heat up your phone. The other thing is, I found that there's a bit of glare and reflection. There were a couple of times when we were up on the hills and I looked down and I couldn't really see much. Even though there's an anti-glare film on the screen, it's just, I think in a couple of times, you just need to move the bike around, of course, to get that glare and reflection away. But we get plenty of sun in Malaysia, so this might be one of those things to look out for. The one on the Royal Enfield Himalayan, though, the way that it's mounted is a slightly more inclined, it's a bit more vertical, so you don't really have to worry about that. So perhaps that is something to consider with the dash of the Guerilla 450. Now, I like the way how it has been offset a little bit to the right. That just adds to the character. In terms of switches and such, very clean, in terms of quality, it feels perfect. So if you're going to be parking your bike outdoors, I don't think you have to worry too much about fade, unless it's just permanently parked outdoors. Then, anyway, time will tell, I guess. So circular rear view mirrors, these are they function really well. None of that vibrational stuff and such that basically render them obsolete. But there are some bikes over here that use the Royal Enfield accessories and they have bar and mirrors. Those look really good. So look out for that. And then further here is a new metal tank. So this has been developed specifically for the Guerilla 450. It looks really good and it feels really nice as well, especially when you need to, sort of just hang on to it under heavy braking and such. So it feels nice. It's an 11-litre tank, and Royal Enfield says that the Guerilla 450 does about 29.5 kilometers per litre, which is amazing. And that should give you a theoretical real-world range of roughly over 300 kilometers. But, and that's a big but, the real-world range that we saw yesterday was slightly under 250 kilometers. But to be fair, these bikes are brand new. Some of them are just about 200-300 kilometers. Some are less in terms of what we are seeing on the odometer, and that just means they haven't been through their first service, and that should get better. And besides, we were absolutely gunning it yesterday as well, so not really a proper real-world test in terms of testing out the claimed fuel range. Further down, you get the same 452cc engine that you find on the Himalayan as well. 40 PS, 40 Newton meters of torque, as well as the same transmission. However, the transmission has a longer final drive, and that should give you a higher top speed as compared to the one on the Himalayan. Besides that, the framework, even though it's the same as the one on the Himalayan as well, I'm using a lot of references to the Himalayan because there are pretty much a lot of references that I can use in this video. The frame is basically the same as the one on the Himalayan as well, but there's been some chopping and redesigning and such, but essentially it's the same. And the engine though is a stressed member of the frame now. The subframe though is completely different, hence why you get this sort of flat tracker look at the back over here. And then moving further up, the seat of the Guerilla 450 sits about 780 millimeters off the ground. Then I find this to be a little bit on the shorter side. Look, I can even like flat foot over here, and I'm roughly about 5'11", close to 6 feet. And I do think that a 800 millimeter seat would work better if you're taller. And I do know that there's a lower seat option from Royal Enfield as well if you're vertically challenged. Besides that though, the exhaust system is basically the same as the one on the Himalayan as well. And I know I can't stop the references, but bear with me. The swing arm is essentially unique to the Guerilla 450 as well. Braking power provided by a single piston bi-brake caliper towards the back, grabbing a smaller disc as compared to the front as well. Stopping power, brilliant. Dual channel ABS. They're not very intrusive. There were moments under heavy braking yesterday where they didn't really have to, in fact, I don't recall having to use the ABS, or not use, but where they intruded and took over braking duties and such. In terms of rider comfort, as I said, seats are not bad. I would like a bit of additional padding after about 6 hours of riding and such. You do tend to get a sore bum, but there's a lot of solutions in the aftermarket that can help with that. My boots did pick up a bit of vibrations from the foot pegs, so that is something to look out for. And besides that, in terms of electronics, you do get 2 riding modes, performance and eco. And one thing about the engine, even though it's the same as the one found in the Himalayan, it has a better mid-range torque. So riding uphill, 3rd gear, 4th gear, not a problem. There were some judders and such, but not an issue. About the transmission, I do like the short throw. It's just a bunch of clicks from gear to gear. And you have to be a bit more wary about this though, and keep your foot away from the gear shifter, because there were times when I did accidentally shift downwards. So that is something to look out for. In terms of comfort, no dramas. In terms of design, I think this is pretty much a blank canvas, and since there's a lot of accessories from Royal Enfield as well as aftermarket, this thing can look really good. You do see some flat track inspiration in terms of, especially at the back over here, and I think that the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do with the design of the Guerilla 450. So who should buy this bike? Well, in terms of references to the Malaysian market, if you are living in places like Seremban, Rawang, Tanjung Malim, and you work in KL or somewhere in between, and you need something that can roughly cruise comfortably about 120 kilometers or 100 kilometers, and you need something sort of economical and comfort, and yet at the same time you want to hit the hills and mount, perhaps ride up to Genting on the weekends, the Guerilla 450 is absolutely for that purpose. It's brilliant for that. Besides that, if you are looking to get into the wonderful world of motorcycling, you're a new rider, novice riders, this is brilliant, not only in terms of the height, but also in terms of the weight of the bike. This is basically a 185 kilogram motorcycle. It's just really easy to manage in terms of weight. Now, low speed handling, no issues. The handlebars are slightly narrower than the one that you find in the Himalayan, of course. Of course, that's a touring bike, so wider handlebars. This is not, it's a roadster, so the handlebars are slightly narrower. But keep in mind that if you do opt for the bar end mirrors, that is going to increase the width of the handlebars. So cutting through traffic might be an issue if you use bar end mirrors. Besides that though, it's a brilliant bike if you're starting to ignite or perhaps even reignite your love for motorcycles. The Guerilla 450 is a very good option. Now, the natural competition for the Guerilla 450 are the likes of the Triumph Speed 400 as well as the KTM Duke. And I think if you're looking at the KTM Duke, this is I feel a better option for the market right now. In terms of Triumph, the Triumph Speed is going to be a very stiff competition between the two. It all comes down to the price. I don't have the price at the moment, and I hear that it's only going to hit the Malaysian market somewhere in the Q1 of 2025, which means we are still roughly about 6 months away from knowing whether this is going to be a proper competitor to the Triumph Speed 400. But Royal Enfield Malaysia has a history of getting their prices right. Now, this is something that is unique to the new, we should accredit this to the new distributor DD Resources. They've been doing a stellar job in terms of pricing for the Royal Enfield, hence why we are seeing more Royal Enfields on our road, and hence why this is the first time that Malaysian media have actually been invited for a Royal Enfield global ride. So we are seeing a rise in popularity of Royal Enfield in Malaysia, and bikes like the Guerilla 450 are just going to simply reinforce that love and the strength of the bike, of the brand in the Malaysian market. That's it from me, guys. Thank you for watching. As usual, do consider subscribing.